Well, hi everyone, Mayor Drew Dilkens here, and today I am taking you inside the Sandwich First Baptist Church, which is a 182-year-old church located in Sandwich Town that holds really tremendous historic value. It's not just for our community, but for all of Canada. It is the oldest black church in our region and one of the oldest black churches in our entire nation. And more important than its longevity is its legacy. And I'm joined here today by Lana Talbot, who is the Heritage Coordinator for Sandwich First Baptist Church, to talk about the legacy and also the church's future.
Thank you, Mayor Dilkens, for coming and sharing my history and the black history and the history of this important church. When I come to Sandwich, I used to hear my great-grandmother tell me about the people that would hide underneath the floor. Because I would say, Mama, what is the significance of Sandwich First Baptist Church? And she said, it's the home where people would go, the Underground Railroad people would go and hide because they were so afraid that the bounty hunters would come and take them away. They hid under the floor, and I can tell you there's only about 2 feet between the ground and the portion of the floor. They would get down, they would have to crawl on their bellies. At the back, there's maybe a 4-foot drop where you first come in. And that's where they would hide until they knew it was time to come out. Such people like Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, John Brown, all those people have come through these doors. One of the most important people to me was Rosa Parks, and it was just wonderful. We used to do reverse tours. The kids from the north would go down south, the kids from the south would come here. Now, one year she brought with her Emmett Till's mother, who was Mamie Till Mobley. And if you don't know about Emmett Till was the 14-year-old boy that went down from Chicago to Mississippi. And he was completely annihilated, and his mother wanted to show the world evil, and evil was because how they had destroyed him. We found it a little harsh for our children, but we wanted them to know what racism is all about. We want them to change. We want love, not hate. We want to go through the things. The history here, and there is a lot of history. We know that when the bounty hunters were found to be in this area, there was always a bell that would be rung. And when they rung the bell, each person heard the bell, picked up the bell, and rang it. And by the time the bounty hunters got to the doors of the church, they were locked. The enslaved were hidden away, and the pastor would tell to the people, there's a stranger at the door, let him in. And that was a song that they would sing. And then another song that when the bounty hunter had left, they would start singing, I'm on my way to heaven, or they would sing, we've come this far by faith.
Keep going if you want.
Oh, keep going? Oh, I can keep going. Oh, okay. Back in
you have me captivated, so keep going.
Back in 1844, there were 3 people that went from this church. It was Minister Thompson. It was 2 of his deacons, Turner and Brant. They went to Queen Victoria, or they went to Great Britain to see about getting a parcel of land to build this edifice. Our first church was on Brock Street. It was just probably a 1-room log cabin, and they outgrew that with the congregation and with the people coming in from the south. Then they were up on Hill Street, which is about a block away, and they had maybe a 2-bedroom log cabin, which they outgrew it. So the minister and the 2 deacons in 1844 went to Great Britain, asked for a parcel of land. They were granted a 1/2 hectare of land, and it was called Lot 22. And in the back of our church, we have the indenture stating that these 3 people were given the lot so that they could build this edifice. And one thing I do, and I always impress this when I'm doing my tours, and I do many tours, and I've brought in, I would say, thousands of people from the from the South and from all over. I've had people from Paris, France come, Great Britain come, and they have come and they've had the tour, and when they had the tour, they would say, I don't quite understand. And I said, what don't you understand? How this church could still be, you know, we always say this is an oasis. When people need help, they come here. And there's been times when there's probably been 100 people, 100 parishioners, but then all of a sudden they sort of like move out. Exactly how I feel when the enslaved came here. They always wanted to get away from the Detroit River because there were the bounty hunters could come. You didn't have to show a birth certificate or a passport. They could just freely come and take back what they called their property. Even some people had manumission papers, and that meant that you had you served your 10 years or your 15 years or your 21 years as a slave, and you are now free. A lot of times the bounty hunters just disregarded that, and they would still try to take their people back. But there was a group called the SS Essex Regiment that refused to let the bounty hunters, come in and take the people back across the border. This neighborhood, this Sandwich it's old, and it reminds me of Cooperstown. If you've ever been to Cooperstown, it's just so old. It takes you back. It makes you feel that you live back in those times. And when I come here, I always feel that. I've even done a couple of things where I tell people, they say, is there really ghosts there? I say, there are spirits here. I will not lie about the spirits that I have felt here in this church. But I love this church. It's a place of memory. I want it like this museum that I feel God has really pushed me and give me the vision to have built. And I'm grateful for the Gordie Howe community that have started it off. I'm grateful for the people that have already donated. The Southwest Detention Center, the Windsor District Labor Council, and just friends, a mortgage company, Dominion Mortgage. I'm just grateful that these people have just come together and said, you know, this is a worthy cause. People need to know, not just that this church exists. This tells you that black people lived here way back in what, 18, who knows, 1820, 1815, 1800s, even back into the 1700s. And I just don't feel that it has the recognition that it needs to. And
so let's talk about that, because you are undertaking an effort to build an Underground Railroad museum here. You kind of let the cat out of the bag and talked about some of the sponsors, but let's talk about what it is you're trying to do. And she's trying to raise $100,000 to get this initiative off the ground, and it'll be located right here on the site of this church. So maybe you can explain to us what this is going to look like and what people will experience.
Okay, I hope that people will experience what it would have looked like to have lived at that time in a log cabin where we would just have furnishings. Hunter Kersey, who is Brian Kersey's son, who has a tremendous amount of property that was his dad's, that was historical, that he promised that he would give to the church once we get the museum started. Then on the other side of the museum, I would like it to be known of the families that existed, the pastors that pastored this church, the people that had given. I think of Elijah McCoy, brilliant man, born in the States, lived in Harrow or Colchester, South Colchester, got his education in England, or Scotland, I'm sorry, and he had 260 some patents, and the lubricating cup was one of the that he had.
Yeah.
And my brother always says, "Oh, it took every ball bearing that is today is used from that patent, because that patent was so that they didn't have to take the wheels off the train." He did the water sprinkler, he did the ironing board. That's just a couple I want people to realize, they talk about Thomas Edison, but it wasn't just Thomas Edison, it was Lewis Howard Latimer that did the filament for the light bulb. There's so many things. Then there was Garnet Morgan, who did the gas mask and who did the electric stoplight where the red, the yellow, and the green was. So many patents and so many things that people of color have really created. But people don't know. I used to do tours. I used to get the kids, I shouldn't call them kids, but children from the schools. They would come in, get the opportunity to learn some Black history. It's always good to learn it through a book, but it's also good to feel it, because in those stones is someone's soul. Those people, they had some kind of a vision. 50, 100, 180, 280 plus years to want to know that today, look where we're at. Here, the same thing. We built a church, they're building a museum.
So it's going to be located on site. You know, having an experience of the Underground Railroad Museum that you're contemplating will be an experience. You'll get to feel what it was like for those who were on the Underground Railroad, the conditions that they had to live in, probably feel some of the fear that they felt when those bounty hunters were coming here looking for them. And that's the whole idea, is to connect all of the senses here and get people really thinking about the history that is so strong in our area, and our Black history is amazingly strong in this area because of our geography.
Exactly, and some people just don't realize what it is. It's something that is deep within your soul. In my soul, I feel. I do a skit, and I come off the pulpit, and I'm looking over yonder, and I see a man hanging. It was Ben. Ben was our chance to leave slavery, but he's dead. He's hanging. They've tarred and feathered him. What am I going to do? And then we sing and we run around and we dig up things and we put things in our pockets. We know about the quilts. The quilts were saying that quilt was hanging out the window telling us it's time for us to leave. How can we leave with the one that we were going to go with is dead? And it's just amazing, because I'm writing a book. Because my brain just won't stop.
Put it down.
It just
Put it down and
will
share.
not stop. And I do. I always want to mention my great-grandmother, because she was born in 1856. She died in 1959 at 103 years, and of sound mind.
Wow.
And her name was Mary Adelaide Montgomery Jenkins, and she would say, Lana, I was born during slavery, but I was never a slave. See, we had our freedom quicker than they had their freedom, or so-called freedom in the United States. But my grandmother would say, yeah, she could tell. And this is why I say I think the history was just deepened inside of me, because she would tell us. We didn't have a TV. We would sit and listen to Grandma tell our stories. And this is my great-grandmother, my mother's grandmother, because my mother's mother died in 1918 with that flu that they had. So we were, there was 8 of us, but there's 4 of us living now. And we're just all stuck together. And you should hear us when we talk. Remember what Grandma said? And I say, do you remember, I always ask, all I know is my grandmother said she was born in Fort Wayne. I said, Fort Wayne what? Indiana, Detroit, or Fort Wayne, Detroit? I don't know. And my one brother, oh, Fort Wayne, Detroit. And I said, oh, I don't know, Dale. I think it's Fort Wayne, Indiana. No, it couldn't be, but it could be. And her father is buried in Maple Leaf Cemetery in Chatham, Ontario. So there's a lot of history. And if I have this history, how many other people have it? But they haven't shared it.
Right.
And that's what that museum is about, sharing and caring about your history and who you are and who God created you to be. And you don't have to be ashamed. I'm not ashamed that my forefathers or my ancestors were Africans that had came over, not on their own volition, but was brought over, mistreated, but somehow, somewhere, somebody had some kind of strength, because I'm here today. Somebody, and I don't know who it was, had the guts to run and wasn't afraid. And I guess that's where I get this tenaciousness they say about that. They say, oh, she's crazy, she'll do it. I don't do anything. But I know that there's a reason. There's a reason for my being. That's
Absolutely.
how I know.
So we look forward to you sharing that story, and you can help. Again, she's raised money. Lana has raised money with the help of several sponsors already, but trying to get to $100,000. Check out the email address that's on the screen right now, a way for you to connect with Lana and the team here at the church and make a contribution. You get a tax receipt, and you can help bring some of this history alive. And I have to say before we leave, having lived here my whole life, and all of you watching know how important Windsor's history is to me. Living here my whole life, I will admit, I did not know that this church was here on Peter Street in this location. This is the first time. I had no idea. And it's interesting because it is on Canada's historic register. This is a nationally protected historic site in Canada. So come and visit yourself. Be a part of this. It's a great initiative. Thank you so much for sharing some of the history today. And thank you for watching this edition of Mayor's Minute. If you have an idea, if you'd like to go somewhere, if you think there's a place that I've never been to, like this church in our city, drop me an email at the address on the screen right now, and we're going to go there and we're going to take you along with us. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.